businesses are really egotistical. They're like, I'm the answer. I should be the answer. Well, first and foremost, really? Should you be the answer? Are you the best in the world?
Hey, what's up, Jeremy, the online ads guy? Thanks for checking out another episode. Today I had the pleasure of interviewing Stephan Bajaio. I got to make sure I get the name right because a lot of people don't get it right. Yeah, we had a great chat about he calls chasing LLM rankings fool's gold. He knows and he has strong street cred because he's been 25 years, co-founder of Conductor. I haven't heard of Conductor before because the enterprise SEO platform sold for like 300 something million. Yeah, just like a lot of knowledge around SEO, and he's currently started his own company, co-founded his own company, VibeLogic. And yeah, we just talked about everything from where LLM is, how marketing managers and even operators should stop thinking in terms of specific silo channels and should be able to operate across the board, that kind of thing. So very interesting, really dynamic conversation. I hope you enjoy watching. Thank you. All right, guys, thanks for coming back to another episode. I'm with Stephan Bajaio. So I want to make sure I don't butcher that name because I've been listening to it the whole week.
It's not an easy one. I appreciate, Jeremy, you doing
No
that.
worries, man.
You get extra points.
No, I love it. And I know that how deep street cred that you have, and I'm not going to do it justice. I know that you're the co-founder of Conductor. I know you've worked big and small. And about 2 years ago, I think you started VibeLogic with the other half, Trevor. And that's been going great. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself for the to establish the street cred, man.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, Jeremy. Appreciate it. I know there's a lot of folks probably watching and listening on the other side of the world, so I super appreciate that as well. But wherever you are, I'm excited to share whatever wisdom I've achieved in the last 25 years. Yeah, I am that old. So I'm Stephan Bajaio. I'm former. I'm still technically a co-founder of Conductor, which is one of the world's leading enterprise SEO platform. We were bought by WeWork, if you know that brand. We bought ourselves back from WeWork before they imploded, and we work with the world's largest brands, helping them with SEO and understanding essentially how they should deploy search within their own companies. Software company, obviously, but I built a 65-person global SEO team inside of that, so kind of like an agency. Then I decided I'd go figure out how the other half lived after we were valued at about $500 million. I did a CMO stint for about 1.5 years in a completely different industry. Again, like I said, I got to be on the other side of the table and build a team from very little to 12 people. All of whom were individual contributors, kind of bringing their own expertise to the table. And then finally, about 2 years ago, like you said, I started VibeLogic. It's been interesting. I bootstrapped it. There's no VC money. There's nobody here to save me. But, I've been having a blast and helping companies, large and small, everything in between. So really excited to talk about some of that today.
Yeah, for sure, definitely, man. Last time when we done that pre-interview, one of the first things you got into is you feel like, and this is your core premise, that a lot of the SMEs are chasing fool's gold when they're looking for what they call LLM rankings, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even blame the SMEs. I'd blame the executives.
Right.
And listen, I consider myself an executive. Maybe I'm a little less of an ivory tower executive. When I talk about things, I like to get in the mud and figure it out. I'll say this. I think that right now the technology that we are chasing, which is LLMs, is too early in its state to be defining what you're really going after. So if you think of a search engine, right? Okay. The search engine by nature is supposed to go from most relevant to least relevant. And you know that what's on the bottom of page one is not supposed to be as relevant, we believe, as what's top of page one. That's why top of page one gets more clicks. That's also why advertising dollars, and that's the entire premise of Google's finances, is to put these ads, right, in the places that would get the most clicks. The reality, though, is that that is not what happens inside of an LLM. An LLM is not giving you a list from highest to lowest priority. Not just that, we are so early in the adoption stage of this technology that we're still seeing hallucinations and other things that are changing. And, you know, it's not hallucination by highest confidence to lowest confidence. It's not like saying the bottom of the page, you know, you're going to have less confidence clicking on something it suggests at the bottom versus the top. It doesn't work that way. So it literally could be suggesting something at the top of the page that's kind of erroneous, and you're never going to know it because it has the best poker face of anything out there.
I never thought about it like that, because like you think the relevance, and you think about the erroneous part, right? Like the confidence.
Yeah.
They never thought about that, because you think, well, that's probably what they're most confident in, that's why they put up the top. But that's not. You're saying that's not the case at all.
No, and the problem is that they don't give you a confidence score. If they would give you a confidence score, we feel this is 85% accurate. Okay, you know what you're working with. Versus this is equivalent to the flip of a coin. Versus there's not a lot of content out there about this topic, so we're not going to act like we have the answer. We're going to tell you that this is like a 20% chance that this is correct. At least the user now doesn't have to think, blindly, like whatever LLMs say must be right. The same way, by the way, that people used to think until they got smart about it. Do you guys remember? Think back to the beginning of Google and stuff. If you were old enough to be around for that, people thought it was like God. Whatever Google says is number one must be the best of what it is. Here's the thing: the best oncologist doesn't necessarily have the greatest rate of curing cancer. So, like, just because their website showed up number one, and people had to learn that. We haven't even gotten to the point where the average individual is using an LLM effectively yet to even think about that. And by the way, that's all going to get disrupted by not agents, but assistants. So when Siri really becomes what it's supposed to be, underpinned by Gemini, you're going to see that the way people are going to think about their AI is not a chatbot. They're going to be asking for it to do things and hopefully be predictive in how it helps. At the end of the day, and why I think you don't chase the LLM's rankings, quote unquote, is because all that is an interpretation of your data. If you don't focus on your data first, what you're saying to the rest of the world, whether you've gone deep enough into a topic, whether or not you're actually controlling, if you can't get that right, which was what SEO is all about anyway, right? If you couldn't have the pages, if you didn't have the content, then how were you expecting to rank for it? Well, here, it's taking words and stuff from your stuff as well as from the rest of the web. We can talk about what the rest of the web means a little bit later. That is the fundamental. So instead of spending money, and there's a ridiculous amount of money trying to chase this gold, which, by the way, the only people making the money really are going to be the guys that sell you the pans and the picks. Those are the guys that'll make tons of money in this game. Because that's going to keep changing. And have you noticed how fast there's changing?
Every 2 months. Like we spoke 3 weeks ago, things already changed.
Anthropic just said today. Said today, the head of Anthropic said we should hit a break. We should all have a non-proliferation clause on AI right now because it's starting to do things it's not supposed to do, and we may want to hit a brake pedal on this. Now, this is a $1 trillion company that's telling us this. Now, I don't want to conflagrate things. I'm just saying, if that really had a huge... Let's assume that the governments of the world listened to that, and all of a sudden, they're like, oh, God, we got to get together, and they put a summit together really fast, and they make some decisions, and they change everything. You just went and banked on all that stuff.
That's
and now it changes again from under you. All I'm saying is the thing you can control the most is your content. And 9 times out of 10, if I come look at your website and we talk about your business, you're probably not going deep enough or wide enough on certain things in order to really validate that you are what you say you are, let alone using the customer's language.
Got you. So my thing with SEO, because I'm in PPC, right? And you're an SEO expert, and you've been SEO for a long time, and you've worked with massive businesses that came to the office and done work, right? My thing with SEO versus PPC is always like, PPC is they will give you as much instructions as they can. They'll try to review as much data. SEO is always a little bit of mystery. There's always updates. So you kind of know this game. You know that, things are going to change and you better do things on a fundamental level, right?
Yeah, I think you have to
get
look,
it right.
and we kind of talked about this before, but I think you need to see. So PPC is the day trading, and
That's right.
and and the retirement fund is SEO.
The superannuation.
Right? We have to think of them in that way, but they're all stocks, right? So the beautiful part about PPC is we can turn on the faucet, get people to the page that we've built quickly before we even hope it's ranking in Google, and understand whether it converts, what people do, all the kind of, you can get your target audience there and understand it better. Now, it's probably not going to be affordable for you to do that forever, right? Because most people don't retire on their day trading account. Doesn't mean you don't day trade, or it doesn't mean you don't trade. It just means they both have their own place in your financial life. So where I look at it is there's this symbiotic relationship between the two where you can get tremendous learnings. Now, the nice part about PPC also is you don't have to worry usually about someone creating the content. You need a landing page, but if the content exists already, cool. You're kind of at their mercy of whether or not that page converts. So like the CRO of the page matters to you, just like it matters to me as the SEO. But in reality, if the devs don't come fix things for me, speed and other things, I'm kind of screwed. So SEO is by nature. It's funny, we used to think that SEO was all about optimizing the pages. I actually see SEO as optimizing the business. And the reason I say that is because an SEO has to try to convince content writers to go along for the ride. Get dev to take their tickets and actually do something, even though half the tickets should be things they could change themselves. They have to hope that marketing is going to come along for the ride, brand marketing, and allow them to go after certain things. Oh no, we're not allowed to use that term. Oh, we don't like that. That's not brand appropriate. Blah blah blah. Okay, cool. The audience is actually looking for it this way. And then product is coming from another direction and naming things and being like, oh, SEO this for me.
But they don't talk
not as much
talk
what
that way.
paid is going to run into. So this is a problem that's, depending on the size of your company and what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's B2B, B2C, and all that. This is something I have seen on repeat over and over again. So much so that at Conductor, at one point, I decided to take on a role called Chief Evangelist, which my mom didn't understand. She was like, "Are you becoming religious?" And I'm like, "No, I promise. My job is just to show people what would be good for them." That they don't realize that's sitting under their nose. And that was like, I would come into big companies, Fortune 500, Internet Retailer 1000s, and I was the one tapped to go in front of the C-suite or the chief marketing officers and say things to them they wouldn't hear from anyone else.
And to tie it all together, right? To tie all these things together, Yeah,
and I'm not really one, I mean, like, one of my favorite conversations, I'm sitting across from a very impressive CMO with tremendous background, and he challenges me. He says, well, we've been with Conductor for 6 months now, and I'm not, he's new to the business, but he's, I'm not, the way it always works, right? CMO comes in, wants to change everything. So
White knight.
Comes in and goes, well, what's really happening here? Now, I have a problem. My account management team has told me we're up against the fact that we've been giving recommendations to these guys and they're not fulfilling them. So basically what I have to tell him is, John, I am trying so much to get you to your numbers and get you to the right place. However, if Larry Page were to call me up right now, whisper 3 sweet nothings in my ear, one of the founders of Google, by the way, for those who don't know, and tell me the secrets to the algorithm, and if I was just to like type a few things onto your website, you would rank number 1 for every term you ever wanted, and you could dance in the boardroom. How great would that be? Be amazing, right? Here's the thing, even if I had that, in the current situation we're in today, it would be 100% impossible because your system would not allow for me to type the right things. Now, Larry Page doesn't have my number. There are no secrets to the algorithm. And the reality is we've got to try and fail. but
Yeah.
I can't get any of those at bats, so to speak,
Yeah.
because the content team's not going along for the ride and the dev team's not going along for the ride. So why don't we get the CTO in here and start talking about what's the obstacles? Because again, I could be 100% right, and we're never going to know because we can't get opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? Which wasn't a knock on anyone, but it was only to say, like, the system isn't built for success. Even if you come with all the expertise in the world, it won't matter because you're not prepared to do the things we need you to do.
Yeah, so that brings up a really good point. Like that's actually my second point I wanted to hit was that I think those type of communication with marketing managers, and we're talking about measurement, and I think that they've evolved to a point where they understand how fragmented measurement is and how Google is grabbing their own attribution and Facebook's grabbing their own attribution, and everyone's claiming that bit of remarketing in their thing. So it actually the number becomes inflated. So they're thinking about, well, I understand all that, but I'd still need a number to show my boss where the channels has to be invested, right? They only got so much marketing budget, and it's whoever can tell the better story. However, in your eyes and what you guys are putting together, that's not the case. Like, you don't want them to think about that. You want them to think about, well, if you don't
weird.
try it.
I'm not saying numbers don't matter, but I am saying that content matters in order to get to numbers. And content shouldn't be seen as written content or, video or like it's literally the value proposition you're providing.
Yes.
So if you have a good value proposition that should connect, if you were to get it in front of the right people, if you really do offer a good product, you really do offer a good solution, you really are, and again, there's a deservedness to that. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm a crappy business, but I show up and rank.
Yeah.
That's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about if you really deserve it, and the true business problem you have right now is not getting in front of the audience you need to get in front of. You need to convert what you're doing into value before it's selling. Meaning people want to be solved to, not sold to. No one got up and got on the internet today for someone else to sell them shit.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry.
Looking to solve the problem. Right. That's what you're saying.
So when people express their needs, whether that's in an LLM, a search bar, Reddit, anywhere they go, right? They have an intention for finding solutions, finding information, finding answers, sometimes finding product, finding all that stuff, right? But there's more selection now than there ever has been in history. We agree?
Yeah, and you said that people do more research as well now.
But there's also more data to sort through, right?
Yep.
AI has made that horrendous, right? Because all of a sudden you have like the easy button people press to produce, honestly, forgive my French, bullshit content that is really weak and thin, and you have to sort through that. And if you don't know the difference, it looks kind of right, but it's not. And sometimes you need an expert to know the difference there, and that's why executives accept a 40-page dissertation on something and say, great work, and they don't even know really where that comes from. But the point I'm getting at is numbers matter. They still matter. But every one of these people that would report to me as a CMO, we're all trying to jockey for why their channel was the best.
Yes.
They weren't jockeying for making sure that the audience was being made aware of the value proposition they needed. They all were trying to claim the dollar at the end of the day. But that's not how it works. Last click attribution is a fallacy of an attribution model because it's just the last thing in a long road of what someone did. If you look at Google's 7-11-4 rule, it's you have to have 7 hours worth of engagement over 11 touch points over 4 different channels in order to build brand loyalty. Right? So think about that. You think that those 11 touch points are all going to live in the same channel? Of course not. We already said there's going to be 4 channels. And we can't even tie online to offline, so that's a whole other thing. And what I find shocking is go to a sports stadium. Someone tell me the ROI of the banner that's sitting in the sports stadium. Right? We know that a copious amount of money was spent on that, right? Okay. We're just going to assume eyeballs or radio or any of the other things that we do as offline marketing. And somehow when it goes online, we seem to have this belief, this fallacy again, that because it can be measured, it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, we could technically measure how many molecules of air are in my office right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know that would be a good use of our time, right?
Yeah.
So the question really becomes, how are these things additive to the experience that your audience is going through? And this is also why, taking us one step further, I believe in the future, we are going to be focusing more on audience types and following those audiences. And by the way, it's not a funnel, it's an hourglass. It goes to the bottom because the sand goes to the bottom. And when people buy something, you're not in the business of selling it to them once. You're here to sell things again and again, hopefully, as well as the people who buy from you, you want them to tell other people so it fills your quote unquote funnel again, or the top of the hourglass. So if you really want that, you really need to think about your audience's experience all the way through.
Yeah,
all the way through. What does it mean to be a customer? What do they type into the chat bar with your customer success? What are the things they put in the reviews? And that becomes part of your selling proposition, and that is applicable to either a product line or an audience that fits that product line or that specific issue or type or service you're selling, right?
Okay.
That's how you need to connect it. So it's not going to be, I got them via email, therefore just more email. It's this audience likes this, and this helps them move along to a place where ultimately there's more of this audience buying from us.
I want to talk more about that, but if we just go back one step in terms of having an authority platform or program measuring what you're saying, right? From what you're saying, it sounds like, well, that's not going to happen. That shouldn't happen. Because just say the SEO days, there's the SEM Rush and Ahrefs or whatever, right?
Sure.
That's something the marketing manager can point to. He said, well, let's have our SEO meeting. Look, how did we go last month, for example? But what you're saying, that thing, because we're so primitive in LLM, Lifeline, it's so early, it's all anecdotal, it's all conversations. And using logic to think about that instead of pointing to an authoritative platform and a number. Would you say that?
Yes.
Currently?
I think we need to.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that there's not numbers. You can still say and listen.
Yeah.
Profound tries to come up with numbers for prompts, right? I don't know how true. I don't know how true these numbers are. Yeah. I've never really believed that much in Google's MSV anyway. I don't know about you. You ever run stuff? I don't even know. Can you run stuff on zero search volume, paid on zero search volume terms? Do they let you do that?
No, you can't. No, you can't.
We can rank on zero volume terms, and I'll tell you they draw clicks, right? So I know these numbers are not. Now we could argue, what is a 10 versus a 0 and average out across 12 months, which is what it is, a rolling 12-month average for MSV. Now I'm getting too technical for a lot of people, but I will say this. I've never believed that Google they were giving you stuff that was directional. At one point, if you remember, they defaulted to this horrible buckets thing. And they were giving it to us in buckets. So they were giving us search volume in buckets. It was buckets where you wouldn't be able to pull it for a term. It'd just be 1 to 1,000.
Oh, they're doing that again now. They're doing that again soon. Yeah, they're just going back to that.
We had that before, and we were pulling our hair out because it was 1 to 1,000 is very different.
Yes.
1,000 searches for something versus 10 is very different. So stop doing that because it's hard for us to figure out. It's less about the MSV specifically. It's more directional now, and it's more understanding things don't live in a vacuum. They go together. I don't know if you ever did this when you were bored in class. Maybe this is just a me thing, or maybe this is an American thing, or maybe it's, I don't know. But I used to connect paper clips to one another.
No,
and I didn't connect the paper clips in a line necessarily. I would just connect a bunch of them, and then when you pulled one up, a whole bunch of them would come off the table together if you connected enough of them.
Yeah, okay, imagine
it's the same way with keywords. It's the same way with prompts, right? The prompts are still relevant by whether it's mathematically with LLMs predicting the words, or whether it's organic similarity through the similar nature of the content that ranks for those things. Either way, that stuff travels together. So if you get a better sense of what it's about, it gives you a sense of what you should go for. And that's kind of where I look at things and say, oh, okay, well, when we're talking about SEO, we're trying to perform, but I don't think of content any longer as channel related. I think of it as value related.
Audience.
Well, it's value and audience related because I can build it. I can take one piece of quote unquote content.
Yep.
The whole idea of repurposing, right, is making another version of that is a better fit to your audience in the channel in which they're looking. If you took a blog post and tried to stick it on YouTube,
I got you.
Not a great experience, right? So and vice versa. You know, you put a video on the blog, sure, good, but it doesn't get the same attention in the same way. It's good. I like having blogs have video. If I could have everything have video, sure, because I like video.
Yeah.
But that's not how it really
how it's going to be consumed, because whatever context they were in at the time, right? And you kind of got to follow their journey.
This is where I'm going to tell the people who are spending their money over here trying to chase the LLMs, which I do dipsticks.
Yes. Yeah.
So I understand what's there, but not day trading it. More of like the SEO approach to that, not even, less. But the big thing I like to do, because AI definitely has a role in marketing. I'm not here to tell you it doesn't. But here's what I do. I use AI and LLMs to help essentially create the content I currently have in one format and convert it to a interactive format. So I'll give you a prime example. I had an article that I wish executives would read. It's about 4 pages long, at least in a PDF it was. And it was all about how one content writer doesn't equal a certain amount of volume output. You know, they'll go like, I have a content writer so I can get 4 blogs a month out of them. It doesn't work that way. Because I wanted to point out to the executive, hey, if they use a subject matter expert to write the blog, well, their availability and their time and their effort and checking facts with them, all of that stuff takes time. If it's a really hard to rank for keyword and or competitive space, they have to do the research. That takes time. Depending on the number of words, literally, you're trying to perform. That takes time. If it needs legal review or it needs rounds of review with editing, that takes time. None of that was factored into we have one writer, therefore, right? But I know that writing that blog post or that article for executives to read was not going to get read. So what did I do? I took it to Claude and I said, let's turn this into a calculator. I want to be able to slide back and forth. It's going to take, more of an SME's time, less of an SME's time, more or less of this. How many words are involved in this? All of that stuff, right? I want to build that into the plan. So just getting back to where we were.
The PDF, yes.
So
the calculator.
Instead of a PDF, we made a calculator, and the calculator allowed them to move back and forth. One, how many words were involved in the content? How difficult was the SERP, right? Search engine results page. How many rounds of reviews did it take? I called it a vibe check. It's on our website. It's available for everybody. But that's the kind of thing that, like, do I expect that to rank? No. No. Do I think it's a great asset and usable thing that provides value to people that could lead them back to our business later because they're really interested and, wow, these guys are thinking differently? Again, I want everyone to keep this in mind. AI-generated content does not perform in search. Does not. Okay? It will show up for a minute, you'll see a bump, and then you will see a complete crap of your rankings, and it'll be hard to get them back. Okay? Because basically what you said is the easy button is what we use. We're not using humans behind it. And both LLMs and search engines don't want to eat their own tail. Right? If they're cranking out more AI content as search results
and being rewarded,
and crank out more content, it just creates this
it's not good for it.
Spiral, right? And they don't want that. So So this is the exception, as I see it, of creating content using AI. Is I believe that you can take your current content in one format and challenge your LLM. What are different formats that this could be built in? And I don't code. So that whole calculator was just built by the LLM, but I had to struggle and fight with it to make sure it was giving the right answers, the right amount of time, and all this stuff, I believe. But as long as my wisdom is used in that product and the outcome, then it's valuable. And that could have been the number one thing we send in a newsletter. Ooh, now email just got credit for something, right?
Now I see.
I could even get really crazy and I could run paid ads against it. Wild, right? If someone's really looking for a topic that has something to do with that, and it's high relevance, and it's not a lot of cost because not a lot of people are going after the informational term, but the executives might be looking that stuff up, or the head of content of a company is. I just made a connection using paid that wasn't otherwise thought about, right?
Oh, what a very practical example. I didn't think about that because the way you are treating it is like. See, that's a very practical example why channel-based, do you know what I mean, shouldn't take all the credit. Because there's a lot of things that came before it, and a lot of brains were used. Channel were just a way of kind of like touching it, you know, like channel.
It's getting it in front of the right audience, right? Do I think that because someone sees a calculator, right away they go to my contact form and they're like, let me read that. These guys. No. But do I think that if they were, for example, to have seen this podcast or clips from it in social, and then they happen to go to the site and play with this calculator, and then they happen to read a blog post on there, or they happen to get a newsletter because they signed up. Is it the newsletters? Does email take all the credit? Are we going to start trying to figure out whether or not it was the podcast that provided the thing that got them to walk into the stadium and see the banner, right? We're not doing that, right? Like, we're not going to sit here and do that. That's crazy. Spend the time, the money, and the effort building more good stuff.
Right.
You will have plenty. When you have enough money to get data scientists to do nothing but calculate this stuff, good on you. Do it then. Until you're an embarrassment of riches of money, you need to focus on getting more
useful stuff,
good things out there to the right people.
Got you. Okay, cool. So let's go talk about web presence intelligence, WPI.
Sure.
Right. Let's and this is because I think this all leads to it, because that's what they're kind of getting when they get you, right? Like there's type of ideas and movements.
This comes from, honestly, this isn't new. This predates the LLMs. It includes the LLMs now, but it predates it. I think I've been talking about this topic in different names and formats since 2012. And the reason why is because SEO, again, was, I think the data, and it's the same data for paid, so let's be honest. I think that data is incredibly valuable to a business. I think it tells you a lot of demand, the way in which people express themselves and what they're looking for and what their problems are and all of that, because no one lies to their search bar, right? And I think that's going to extend to no one's lying to their LLMs, right? Maybe a little less, because soon there's a whole privacy thing going on there that's a little more invasive with files and stuff that you're not giving Google. But nonetheless, we're not there yet. People are treating this thing like their confidant, like their therapist.
100%.
So we're putting this data in, and we're getting back, as marketers, a lot of understanding of what the demand is like. Now, at least SEO's response to that until now was, I'm going to rank for it. I'm the answer, right? And businesses are really egotistical. They're like, I'm the answer. I should be the answer. Well, first and foremost, really? Should you be the answer? Are you the best in the world, right? Actually think, if there were 100 companies out there that do this thing, are you in fact the best at what you do? Should you really be number one? Now, we could argue back and forth, but that's not it. It's less about being the answer and more about understanding where answers are being given and opinions are being formulated. So it's all the other stuff, right? When you go look at a bunch of prompts for LLMs and a bunch of keywords, what you get back is a bunch of results in aggregate. Now, when you start to look at those results in the context of channels, you learn things really quickly. Hey, there's a Reddit thread that answers this question 9 times out of 10, whether it's in an LLM or in the search results. That means that Reddit thread is incredibly powerful in the conversation, the opinion making of this. The odds that Reddit thread is going to get in front of my audience is pretty high. Now, was that like, I hope my social people get the message and somehow naturally find this Reddit thread and advertise on it and or put a subject matter expert on it? Not sell on it, but solve on it. Really? Like, we're just hoping that that's part of social's job? How about this? When a publisher shows up and that publisher has an author, right? And this article shows up really importantly for an nano influence, right? On this topic. But it's super relevant. And by the way, if you were to look up in other products how well it ranks and the keywords it performs for, they're all words you would love to rank for.
Yeah.
Now, the old days used to be like, I want to outrank that. But really, should you? You're going to outrank an actual publisher? But in the meantime, the publisher's giving you display ads. I could, instead of buying it programmatically, why wouldn't I go and buy out all that advertising on the page? If I do it, one, my competitor doesn't get to buy it programmatically, so that's awesome. And then two, I could really hyper-target this topic I know people are reading about. Do I think that people are going to click on the display ad because of that? No, I don't. Display doesn't get clicks usually.
No.
But like, what is it supposed to do? We're running it to expose our message at a time and place that makes sense to a person we think it makes sense to because of a pixel. I'm telling you, I don't need a pixel. I know that if someone lands here, they care about that topic because that's what they enter into an LLM or a search engine. They end up here. Now, what are the odds the display team knew that that was such an important page in the life cycle of a
Well, what a great point. Yeah, I can see it now because you kind of like unsurface and join the kind of departments and you give them the overview of the whole thing, right? But surely
no one's responsible for what I'm talking about aside from the CMO. But the CMO will never care about it that much because it's too in the weeds.
That's exactly right.
Too late. It crosses the silos of a marketing department. Okay, in a way that goes horizontal instead of the verticals that are each channel. Right. The social was here. Even PR. Think about this. The author of that published piece is probably most likely to write the next piece about that topic, whether it's for that publication or someone else. Should we reach out to that person? They may not be the most notable journalist, right? But when it comes to this topic, they have experience writing about it. So what are the odds they get picked again? Now, even better, what if they're a freelance writer and I can get them to come write for my brand? Wow. Oh my God, I just got you a writer with authority, which is what Google wants anyway, right? To come work for you. There are partnerships opportunities there. You can even use this for job boards and where to spend your money from literally a recruitment perspective. I've saved a company. They had a $500,000 job board budget, and we decided to, whether someone was searching in New York for a sales job versus someone searching in Atlanta, putting in those words like Atlanta sales jobs versus New York sales jobs, we could literally find which job boards were performing better. And we put the ads in the right ones, knowing who was performing best in that market, and they got the same number of applicants, and they saved 50% of their spend. Amazing.
Okay, so there's so much stuff that's happening here, but if no, I'm just thinking it's really, really good, and I'm thinking that if someone did engage with you, right, like they're gonna have these conversations, but how does it become systematic? Like, is there a discovery session?
First and foremost, it's not for everyone, Jeremy. Like, I have to just caveat this, right? Listen, if you want to spend $2,000 and get a report that tells you this about a topic, we can give that to you. Okay? Do I think you should probably spend the $2,000 on that? Not if you don't have multiple channels of marketing that you could actually go execute.
To action on it anyway.
Right. I don't want to give you data. The last thing I want to do is take money from someone who can't get value out of what I provide. Insights are wonderful, but if you can't, marketing is a verb, right? You have to take action. So if I can't give you something you can take action on, I'm not really sure you should spend the money. I'd rather you consult with me with that money and then we go figure out what you need to create content around, and then you go build it and spend money against writing your content or producing content, I should say. There's so much that I guarantee we could probably look at your website and there's a thousand things. But again, I would say like the sweet spot, and this is why, so it's funny, we were trying to bring this to everyone before. It's good for everyone, because it is good for everyone.
I think so,
It's good. But not everyone can action off of it. So what we started doing in our engagements was we created a maturity assessment. And the maturity assessment was about like 55 questions that are multiple choice. And the thing is, we'd have multiple people fill them out in the company. And the reason we did that was because I've done this in the past. Perceptions vary depending on who you ask the questions to. So we ended up having to take 2 one-hour meetings as part of the deliverable instead of one, because what would happen is you'd bring these people to the table and they both didn't necessarily agree on, well, how often do we consider SEO when we write content? One's saying never, the other one's saying always. Okay, so that's a conversation that's not naturally happening in your company, right? So I'm here to kind of moderate and get you guys to an agreed upon amount. At which point, then we gave them a roadmap to say, hey, listen, if you want to work without us or whatever, we can give you insights as to the things you should probably do next and prioritize them for you. But if you really want us to help you along the way, we can do that.
And so maturity.
That was our way of like making sure that if they didn't have these channels, they didn't have the capabilities, they didn't have the wherewithal to do it, let's not go and buy this reporting, because it's not going to solve your problems.
So the service, the WPI, is actually, so starting with a consultation, etc., but there is an ongoing piece that goes with all of that. You help
what
them
we
along the
usually
way.
do is, depending, again, we don't day trade the same topic, so like someone will say, okay, we believe that this is like a topic, and usually we don't go too close to the conversion, because then it's all your competitors, right?
That's it.
You got to go a little further up, earlier stage, which allows for a lot of different topics that could be relevant to you, for you to get a sense of what those are, right? And what's showing up for them. And then once you have an understanding of that market research, that landscape, right, so to speak, you know where to plant your flags. Or I like to think of it as a roulette table. So you could bet red and black for the rest of your night, but I don't think you're going to make a lot of money that way. Instead, we can help you decide, hey, you have these chips, and that's enough to, let's say, put on these numbers. So if you have social, let's go look. Oh, you have PR? Okay, let's put some chips here. Okay, let's do that. The odds of us hitting are a lot better than they would have been if we just said one channel, one thing, one little... Right? We're spreading ourselves out across an audience's likelihood of seeing this stuff, not your stuff, seeing the answers that are provided to them, and using that to your advantage. You think of it as build, which is mostly SEO, but it can also be partnerships, buy, advertising, and so forth, borrow. Borrow is literally like the authors, the PR, the other stuff that kind of falls in line with that, right? Writing on a social forum, that's borrowing. You're borrowing the authority of the forum in order to get the authority.
And you're doing a bit of that. Yeah, that's amazing. That's really good. As I know we're running out of time, and I really appreciate everything that you're giving me. There's so much.
Go on forever. So.
There's so much. And then I really wanted to ask you, like, if people wanted to engage with you, or what do you feel like there's anything that we missed today that you want the people to know? You've given so much knowledge.
Listen, I'm always happy to give advice and help along the way. Probably to a fault, but that's, I usually wear a T-shirt that says if you're not helping people, you're just selling stuff. So I'll say this: you can reach out to VibeLogic.com, and that's our website. Feel free to reach out there if you're interested in possibly working with us. Otherwise, also follow me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Stephan, Stephan Bajaio. It's a hard name, but I guarantee you, if you look me up in Google,
there's a lot of stuff there.
And LLM, you're going to find me. That's my job, is to be found, right? And ideally, don't sell something to me, because I'm not buying anything these days. But I am trying to help and solve rather than sell. So if you've got an interesting problem that you're trying to solve, I also love those things. Just
I love it.
And trying to come up with answers.
And I've been to your website, because I do the research, and I've been to your website. It has really good web copy, dude. It's like very clear. Like you guys must do that yourself. And I watch your podcast as well, which I'll tell you more about off air. But yeah, no, it's really good, man. Well, thanks
Thank
again,
you.
man,
I
for
appreciate
coming.
it, and like
Yeah.
I said, I'm always happy to share insights. It's kind of what I do. I sometimes feel like I'm yelling into the void. I'm not gonna lie. So if you hear, this is actually for not just me, but I'm just gonna put this out for everyone. If someone inspires you that you're listening to on one of these podcasts, Jeremy as well. I mean, he's the one putting it together, right? So I'm not begging for his subscriptions, likes, all that good
Yep.
stuff. But you should do it if you haven't done it yet. So like and subscribe, as they say. But take a second and reach out to that person with a quick note. It doesn't have to be, you're not trying to buy from them. You're not trying. The goodwill that puts out into the universe is amazing. And you'd be surprised how few people actually do that. You can really make someone's day by doing it.
I start doing it.
I get it from time to time. People say my stuff helped them. But you don't understand how much time and effort gets put into these type of things where we don't know what the outcomes are. If you use one of these strategies and it works for you, God bless you. Like, let me know. I would be nothing
I'll
but
start doing it.
joyous to find out that one of these things is helping you, or that I was able to help you with your career, or you had a better conversation with your boss because of it. That's all great stuff. Don't hide that. Share the goodness. I promise you. The web is a cold, dark place.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna start doing that. Yeah, no, it's amazing. Well, thank you, man. Thanks again, dude.
Thank
Really
you
good.
for having
All
me. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks everyone for listening. Hey, what's up? Jeremy Yang, the online ads guy here, owner of Digital Goliath Marketing. If you found whatever you're watching helpful, you found it interesting, like, subscribe, comment, suggest other topics you think we should cover here. We've aimed to release weekly episodes, helping SMEs with marketing, advertising, talking to professionals about growth, processes, all that good stuff. All right, see you on the next one.